Hi, my name is Edith Acuna, and today I'm going to be talking about my capstone assignment for the course MFT 690. So, for the last final assignment, we were required to complete one of the practice exams from the AATBS website, and we were also required to complete a paper with our theory of choice. So I'll start off by talking about my score for the exam. So I got a 52%, which is a 95 out of 180. Unfortunately, I didn't meet the requirement of a 70%. And so I included my remediation plan in the assignment. And in the assignment, I talked a little bit more about why I felt like I didn't pass the exam. So my experience with the exam was that it was a bit challenging. It talked about certain topics that I felt like I didn't have much knowledge in. Like, for example, the different types of theories. I'm familiar with them, but they the questions that they asked were a bit more in depth and how the theories apply to certain cases. And so I found that to be challenging for me still. Um, I also found that it was challenging with the diagnosis. There was some new diagnosis in there that I had not worked with before or heard of before. So in application to some cases, I wasn't really confident with those diagnoses. So um yeah, my plan is to continue studying. I did include some of the resources that I plan on purchasing following graduation to make sure I study thoroughly to prepare for the licensing exam. Um, so I also found that in juggling like practicum, clients, hours, and schoolwork, it was very hard for me to fill in some time to study. So I didn't feel like I was able to study as much as I would have wanted to be able to pass this exam, but I am confident that I'll be able to study some more to pass the license exam. And I also included the screenshot of my scores. So now I will move on to talking about my theory of choice. So my theory of choice is solution focused therapy. And for the first question, it talked about our choice and to work with individuals, couples, and families. And I found that this was a challenging question just because my theory of choice has changed over the years. As I was a student, and then as I started accumulating experience during practicum, and now as I'm graduating. Um, I also, after doing some research, I was able to find that I'm not the only one, that this is pretty normal and common as a therapist. Their own goals and their perceptions of reality changes and they grow and they learn. And so with that comes a different choice in modality. And so in the beginning of this program, I was really interested in CBT. However, I found that has changed now. Now I'm really interested in doing solution focused therapy. Okay, so the reason why I chose solution focused therapy is because it was one of the theories that fascinated me. I also had a hard time implementing this theory in the beginning just because of the big shift on moving towards a solution focus rather than problem focused. I found that many of us can get stuck on that problem focused mindset. And so I personally had a hard time with it as well. I found that I also was very stuck on problem focused. And so throughout my journey as a therapist, I started moving more towards the solution focus personally and professionally. And I also found that it is a very uh if it's a very positive technique in the matter that it focuses a lot on identifying client strengths and not much on the past that has influenced the present, um, but giving more attention to that positive, those positive aspects like the strengths and moving towards like finding solutions to the presenting symptoms. So I also find that it aligned with my morals and my values, and I find that I'm a positive person as well too. So it was very easy for me to implement that. Um, and let's see what else. Okay, another thing that I talked about in my paper was how solution focused therapy is a short-term approach. And so I talked about the benefits of that and how there's a high demand in mental health services, and also there's a shortage in clinicians. And so um, for solution focused therapy, it focuses on solving and providing some relief to this current symptoms. And yeah, rather than like focusing on like too much on the past, and that could be very costly for some people, and also it could create some I guess disengage the clients from attending to long-term therapy. And so I think my experience with clients is that they come into therapy and they really want that support for their symptoms in the moment. And so even though long-term therapy could be beneficial for some cases, maybe some cases with trauma, for some, I found that this approach was very beneficial in just providing that relief in the moment. Um, and yeah, it could be also a way of clinicians being able to serve more clients, as we're able to close cases quicker rather than long-term therapy if you have a client that's engaging in services for years. Another reason why I like solution focused therapy is because in focusing on solving the problem and attending to solutions is a shift in perspective. And so um, that will also help the client to continue solving problems in the future and following the end of services. So, okay, moving on to the second question. The second question talked about how we will use our theory of choice with clients who have different opinions than us, different experiences and values and beliefs. And so in my paper, I was able to talk a little bit more about the concept of the glass half empty, half full in regards to like positive um, and negative thinking. Also like problem focused versus solution focused thinking. And I talked a little bit about how frustrating that could be for the clinician if when working with a client who maybe is not as open-minded to moving towards solution-focused approaches. I talked a little bit about how that could be some resistance on the client's end, and how that could be frustrating for the therapist. That could maybe bring on some counter transference from the client to feeling frustrated and maybe having some a hard time being understanding of the client. And so I think one way to deal with that would be to approach the client with curiosity, and what is bringing on that resistance, to move from problem focused to solution focused, and maybe validating some of those concerns. And um, I think um, my main takeaway of for that question is that just to approach your clients with curiosity. Um, so yeah. Okay, moving on to the third question. This question talked about how we will use our theory in approaching clients with different cultures. Um, so I talked a little bit about the importance of developing cultural competency. Um, And so, how one can develop cultural competency is by getting to know oneself, one's own beliefs, one's own values, and as that will help contribute to the curiosity in approaching the other the client, getting to know their own uh, perspective of their world. And also highlighting those differences between cultures um, and beliefs. The differences and the similarities will help with just maintaining that balance of being able to connect with the client, but also um, to be different than the client, have different experiences. It's a perfect balance. Okay, and lastly, for the fourth question, it talked about how I would utilize solution focused therapy with a client who is very different than me, in terms of like culture, gender, socioeconomic class. And so I used an example of an 18-year-old client that I worked with. And this client, there was he was presenting with severe depression that was impacting his social, daily, and family functioning. And so when I first began working with him, I also found that I got stuck in the problem focused approach, just because his symptoms were on more on the severe side. And it was, I began to feel those feelings that he also felt, of feeling frustrated, stuck. Um, but with the solution focused therapy approach, I was asking clarifying questions, miracle questions, scaling questions, coping questions, and they all helped me to collaborate with him in identifying the main focus for treatment. So I know there was many other problems going on, but we were able to collaborate and figure out which is the most important problem to focus on in the moment. And that was really helpful with his case. Also, in my time working with him, there was much similarities and differences. For the similarities, we had the same culture, and so we spoke the same language, and so I made sure to highlight that. But there was also some differences that stood out during our time together, like the difference in power, right, position, and also like the gender. Um, that I noticed was a big deal for him, that he was a male and I was a female, and I was unable to understand. I could empathize with him, but I wasn't able to relate to the certain gender differences that we had experienced. And so I validated that, and I approached it with curiosity. And I think in me being able to highlight the differences, but also focus on the similarities, and uh, empathetically listened, I think there was a good balance in working with him. And we're able to develop like a good therapeutic relationship. And um, treatment was effective with him, and he engaged in services, and there was a lot of progress and growth that I was able to see with him during our time together. Okay, and that pretty much sums up my capstone assignment. I'm sorry if this video was all over the place, but thank you for your time, and goodbye.